Welcome everybody to Kissing the Cod. We have a guest today, Joel Freudman from TRU Precious Metals. Hi, Joel.
Hi, Janet. Thanks for having me on the program.
Oh, it's great to see you. It's been we've all been quiet a while, busy, just doing what we do, and this will be the start of the new season once everybody's got some time to talk again. So it's great to have you here.
I'm happy to be here. And actually, funnily enough, the first time I went to Newfoundland, I did get screeched in and kissed the frozen cod. So I think it's
Oh,
a well-named podcast. Yeah,
oh, wonderful, wonderful. So you're a Newfoundlander now.
basically, I've been sworn in. So
And you were just there as well.
yeah, that's right. I went down at the start of the month in October to visit, our team in the province and also our Golden Rose project. Stayed at the camp on site. I went to a couple of target areas that I'm sure we'll get into. But really nice to kind of be back in the province. I go out there at least once a year to check in on the team. Also certainly see how the project's shaping up. And I think that's a disconnect. It's difficult for usually the execs of the company if they're not based in where the project is to get out and see it. And it really impressed on myself and on our CFO, who also came with not only the scale of our Golden Rose project, but even just generally kind of some of the logistical issues you encounter when you're in the field in a drill program or doing soil sampling relative to when you're sitting in the office and saying, oh, well, why did things go over budget or can we drill this hole? And they say, oh, it's not practical. It's really instructive to actually go visit the property. It's a real eye opener, even for ourselves in our own project.
Yeah, yeah. I remember once going to visit projects and they didn't have a credit card to buy fuel. And
Really?
just the little stuff, right? Like nobody thought of it. So I left my credit card at the camp and it was like, we'll deal with it later. But yeah, there's
They
always
got maxed out for Mary's Brown's chicken fingers, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. So TRU is focused on gold in
Yep.
Newfoundland, and it's TRU on the venture. Um, how did you start this? You're the founder as well as the CEO.
Yeah, it's been a long, winding road. Company was inactive for a couple of years, and I got involved very early on in kind of a predecessor stage to just do a bit of restructuring and setup. Bringing kind of our people, new director and officer team, that kind of thing. This was all, let's say, in 2020, early mid 2020, and in September, October of 2020, we picked up our first property in Newfoundland because Newfound.Gold, who I'm sure your listeners know by this point, Newfound.Gold was doing its IPO. A lot of talk around gold in Newfoundland, so we picked up a property, not really knowing how things would turn out. We just thought, hey, we should have some exposure to this area as we start to reactivate the company, and then just people started coming out of the woodworks when they saw our press release. People are saying, well, here's a property you can have. Some people wanted to join the team in an exploration capacity. And I was still used to, my background is securities and mergers lawyer. So I'm used to like restructuring public companies through my merchant bank, Resurgent Capital. We do reverse takeovers, IPOs. And so all of a sudden, all these, prospectors are calling me from Newfoundland saying, oh, we got more properties for you. And someone approached us and said, we have a property called Twilight. And that gentleman then joined us as our vice president of property development for a couple of years. Barry Green, he's still on the board, and things just started really snowballing. We acquired more properties, built up the team, and again, this was still been my first journey as a junior mining CEO, junior exploration company CEO. Things really, I'd say, hit an inflection point at the start of 2021, and we signed a deal with Altius to get our Golden Rose project. So they optioned us this project, and that's really like the company maker asset. Huge land package. It's between two gold mines. These are the kind of the usual talking points when I talk about TRU. We did two financings, oversubscribed. ARX Brock came in as an investor, and all of a sudden, between the start of 2021 when we just had this general assortment of several smaller properties to now we have a district scale property. We have TSX listed Altius in our shareholder base. We have institutional financing. That was a lot happened in the first 6 months of 2021 to set us up on the trajectory for where we are now. So been kind of a crazy journey. We've now run 2 drill programs. We have an exploration team based in the province, multiple execs based in the province. We've been to the site several times. We've completed additional financings. It's not a linear career path by any stretch, nor what I initially had in mind, but it's been a fascinating journey. It's been great to like meet yourself, meet a bunch of people in industry, go out to Newfoundland, on a more recurring basis, and also just get a sense of the geological potential of the province. As you would know, right, from your involvement as well, it's kind of everywhere you look. There are indicators for gold, base metals, all kinds of other surprises. In some cases, depending on where you're talking about in the province. So it's been really interesting. And I think the story continues to really only unfold. And so I'm very happy and lucky to be a part of it.
So how does a securities lawyer end up running a junior exploration company? That's a dramatic change. Like, I'm curious, and I know it's a huge asset to have that background in what you're doing, and an asset to your shareholders. But how did you make that change? Why?
Initially it really was opportunistic. We started acquiring properties. So we were setting off and we figured, okay, we'll bring in a mineral exploration CEO to replace me. I was more, versed in restructuring a public company to get us to that stage. And it was really, we signed the deal with Altius and I thought, okay, well, now I've definitely got to stay here for a bit and see it through because I sold them on, we're going to run the company. We'll do justice to the project. Then we started taking in financings early last year. And, the team was saying, look, you're here already as the CEO. You can't just kind of leave right after because people are putting in money on the backs of what you're telling them and kind of the plan and the vision you're setting out for consolidating this property package in this area and developing it. And ultimately, of course, our real objective, hit a discovery that kind of gets the share price going and allows us to build out the company around exploration, but also on the corporate side. So things just kind of snowballed. And a number of times just to be pretty candid, like we did say, like, well, what other executives can we add to the team? Should we replace myself? Should we add other personnel on the team who are more versed in the industry? And the approach we wound up taking is, this is my rookie journey. Although at this point it's been 2 years. It's my background is a differentiator, I would say, in the industry, particularly relative to a lot of juniors who are run by geologists. But even in addition, if people have more of perhaps a broker background or that kind of thing. Mine's a bit more execution focused and strategy focused, I would say, based on the legal background. And so it's just kind of continued to be this interesting journey where I guess what it comes down to is, like, I don't think our job is finished. I don't think the job I set out to start, not knowing what I was getting into, is not completed. Because we're still like we've added people to the shareholder base. We've doubled the size of the property in a year of owning it through like aggressive property M&A. So I still think where the biggest thing outstanding at this point is a couple of really, really strong drill holes where people say these guys are onto something. And I realize there's certain terms you can and can't use, for securities law compliance, but more, we're clearly seeing indicators all over the property such that everywhere you look in kind of every different method, we're finding like gold, copper, silver, all kinds of, we didn't even expect copper or silver on our property. So the more we see these signs, the more it tells me as a non-geologist, something's going on the property. It must have some merit because we're hitting things at the surface and in drilling. And then to offset the fact that I don't have a deep background in the industry, I have some experience on the legal side, but it's still more, it was less technical and more capital markets oriented. So we supplemented, I wanted to build a team that everyone plays to their strengths. So what I'm good at is, execution, management, process, regulatory, M&A, certainly financing. But we added, for example, a CFO who she's now president and CFO. She's run junior mineral explorations before. She's done flow through financings as well as the accounting side. We've added a new VP of exploration to replace our prior VP who's transitioned just to a board role now. The new VP's worked on all different kinds of deposit types. He's worked for Sherritt, like he's worked for companies with operating mines, but as early stage properties, even earlier than ours. So it's really been kind of juggling. How do I best fulfill my role, try and build the project and the company ultimately with the value of good shareholder return, which would really be through a discovery and or M&A. And alongside that, how do I supplement the areas I'm lacking in or the rest of our team is lacking in so that we have a well-rounded organization to properly attack a property of this size with a limited treasury. So it's obviously there's a lot of balls up in the air at all times. It makes it a very fascinating job, and it's really just again been an interesting ride. There's definitely ups and downs, as our shareholders have seen, as the market has seen, as our large institutional investors have seen. But the project continues to firm up, so that kind of keeps me interested. Well, what else do we have that we don't even know about on the property yet? That's simply a matter of effectively financing the company with as little dilution as possible, while continuing to advance the property to turn up what appears to be multiple discovery potential, especially when you look at our neighbors, Marathon Gold and Matador Mining, and they both have multiple gold deposits along their property. We're right in between the two of them. If you look at our property map alone, let alone what we found, sure looks like the same kind of thesis is firming up along our property. So that's why I think maybe we're in the middle of the story, maybe we're still early, and there's a lot of runway ahead, and that alone is enough to keep me engaged. I'm curious to find the treasure, I guess.
Well, what I like about the way you've structured your company is, I don't think geos have to run the companies. That's not their strength. That's not their strength. And being married to a geologist, in his words, the problem with geos as CEOs is they've never met a project they don't love. So there becomes this
Yeah.
attachment to it, and you've got to be a practical business approach,
Mhm.
accounting, legal, everything. But one thing I know you always say is what's important to you is we do what we say we're going to do. We execute, and
Yeah.
I think that's something you should talk a little bit about, because it's important. I think at this time we're seeing a really challenging gold market. Um, it's not without its challenges and hurdles. And I think the dividing line is going to be: did you do what you say you did?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, you can always try and look for short-term fixes or short-term ways to get your share price up a few cents. The real money to be made for investors, the real value to be built in our company is successful exploration. And so, especially, I guess I'd say in sector wide, where it's pretty easy to put out statements and not really follow through on them. I think one of our key differentiators is we're going to put out guidance, strategic plans, these kind of things, not only through interviews, like through formal press releases. We realize the market and our shareholder base is looking at these in order to not only make investment decisions, but even to just generally see, like, how is the company performing? I've invested in a business, even though it's a non-revenue generating business, it's a mineral exploration business. How are these people doing? Can I rely on them to execute the plan? And so, coming from the legal background, which is very process driven, it's something I've had to actually work out of as much as possible. But it's still a mindset of, okay, you have this checklist ahead of you of things that need to be done, and you got to just kind of check them in order to advance the company. I think it's easier said than done, especially in mineral exploration, where we can control the treasury, we can control the team, our budgeting, but we can control what exploration we do. But the real wild card is what's under the ground, that no matter what, we cannot make there be results in the ground. So it's an extremely uncertain type of business, where you kind of have to do your best to come up with an approach to your project, as well as the capital markets tie into it, of like, how do we finance and how do we market the company. And then you have to actually go through with it, which is the really hard part, because all these logistical challenges come up in the field, which again was evident when I went to the field. And oh, this looks like a great drill hole based on a geophysical anomaly. Well, unfortunately, you'd be drilling at like a 90-degree angle at the side of a cliff. So you say, oh, it looks so good, but like, practically speaking, you could not possibly drill there. I guess without some sort of crazy apparatus, like, or you have to do barge drilling over lakes or something. We have a geophysical anomaly on an island in the middle of a pond on our property. So, if I was a geologist, I might say, let's go drill it. It looks nice. But as as the CEO of the company, I say, we're gonna have to truck, or sorry, we're gonna have to truck in a drill and then ship it over to the island and then get all the people to this island in order to drill it. Like, that's not cost effective at this point, when people have limited attention spans and limited patience for delivering results from the property. So, part of the setting out guidance is, I guess, manage market expectations, to say, look, here's what we think we're capable of. Here's what we believe and expect we can deliver in terms of the corporate front and our exploration plans. We cannot promise results, and in any case, you're not allowed to do that. So let's at least tell people our approach, And if they like our approach to the property and management of the company, they'll buy in, whether as shareholders or following up, or they may work with us as a service partner or whatever. And if they don't, so be it. They're free to look elsewhere. But we want to attract people who investors and business partners, personnel to the team. Like, it goes across the spectrum. We want to attract people to be associated with the company who believe in how we're approaching things, and ideally, because I don't know it all, believe it or not, can inform us and advise us how can we do it better even than what we're currently doing. And so I think that's part of being continuously open-minded and saying we have a defined plan, we know what we want to do, and if we get some better ideas, we're happy to take those and refine the plan as we go. But at least people in the market won't be guessing, won't be left scratching their heads. They'll say, I understand how this company's going about it. They're doing it right or they're doing it wrong. And here's maybe how I can help or get involved or what could be done differently. Or maybe let's just see them execute the plan because they're doing it, as good as anybody could take a guess at. So we want to instill some confidence in our approach.
Nice. So where do you see this going?
We just put out news on October 25th about tail end of the field season, firming up multiple targets across the property. I mean, if you look at the image, even within this press release, there's 3 different areas where we have high grade gold at surface, and in 2 cases, so that would be Jacob's Twin, where we drilled this summer, and Mark's Pond, which is on some option land. In both of those places, there is gold in drilling, and in the Jacob's Twin, there was also copper and silver in drilling. So again, like, this is proof there's something under the ground. Is it economic? Is it deposit? All those kind of things. We're not there yet. Yeah. We definitely have to firm up these targets, but they're clear targets where we're not hitting all empty holes. We're actually hitting stuff, meaningful stuff, interesting stuff in the ground. Good starting point. There's another zone in the map in our press release, and that's one of only several other developing target areas on the property. So I think right now is the time. The market's not great, seasonally it's a strange time, obviously economic uncertainty. Right now, I think it's not the time to go gangbusters and try and raise money at dilutive share prices and spend millions across the property. We want to finish the field season on a good note, firm up multiple target zones, maintain our treasury, and as we get into, let's say realistically 2023, start to assess. We have a bunch of different areas, particularly if we already know there's something in the ground, bunch of different areas across the property where we'd want to put in additional drill holes, and let's probably do a multi-target drill program to give ourselves the best chance of expanding known zones, maybe hitting new things. And that still does, properties, I think something like 269 square kilometers, like colossal. So there's even areas where we don't have money or time or personnel to get to for 6 months or a year at least. So where do I see it going is do our best to firm up the areas we know, to give ourselves a sense of like, what are we dealing with based on what's already known to us. And ideally, as the markets recover or, we get some sort of limited dilution financing initiatives, like a few things we've already done, like optioning out a property for some shares and cash. As we run some more of those initiatives to bolster our treasury and or finance at less dilutive levels, those would be the time to even start firming up like a further kind of greenfield prospect list across the property. There's no shortage of places to look here, and there seems to be mineralization almost everywhere you look. And so it's really like continue to develop the property. And I think what we have not seen, on a large scale in Newfoundland yet is mergers and acquisitions activity, although there's some, including, the ones that some of your companies have been involved with. So I continue to think that's kind of where things are going, is some consolidation in the province, because there's no shortage of places to look. And there's probably too many companies, not enough investor money to go around right now. I think that's probably where things are going. So we want to be positioned with that we've consolidated Golden Rose project. We have basically all the land we could possibly want, do our best to firm it up and see what kind of interest comes in as the market starts to turn and you get more interest back into precious metals and other commodities.
Yeah. You got to get past some of the natural egos that you have to deal with in mergers and acquisitions.
This is something
my
Bill
project's
says.
always way better than yours, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Well, and the nice thing that right now the US dollar is so strong that but I always just say it's the prettiest horse at the glue factory, and it can't last forever.
Yes.
But in Canada, gold's holding up. because of the exchange rate. So you're in a good place, right?
Yeah. And we certainly hope to, further advance the copper and silver we saw in our most recent round of drilling. I think that would make a nice inherent diversifier. So not only would the company have multiple commodities, so it's not hinged or specifically to any one commodity, but also we should appeal to a broader market because they're like I know from PDAC this year, people were approaching us at our booth saying, do you guys have copper on the property? And we said, oh, well, early stage, we haven't even shown it in drilling. We subsequently have. Definitely, I believe in the macroeconomic case for gold, even if it's not today or tomorrow. I think it's probably coming. You probably think so too. And I just think some of the other commodities, those would just be, again, nice diversifiers to our property. I saw some stuff the other day on, I think probably Bloomberg, that like precious metal sentiment is at multi-year lows, commodities, copper, like with all the China lockdowns, less demand for economic growth and copper. So I figured this is probably about as ugly as it gets. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but that's why it's, again, like, what can we do within our control? Because we can't control the market, is ride it out cost effectively, advance the property here and there, wait for sentiment to change. Inevitably, at some point, it will. I think that's just, be prudent is the name of the game for the next little while and see how everything else shakes out. Because there's definitely enough catalysts that could, I think, cause a significant resurgence in precious metals and commodities generally.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is pretty ugly out there in the precious metals markets and commodities, but it's I don't think it's going to last. I think
It's funny because people, when things are on sale, people would go out and buy like clothes or groceries, but when stocks are on sale, they don't want to touch it. They say, I only want something that's going up and hitting new highs. We usually wind up overpaying, but that's
Yeah,
just my philosophy. So
yeah, that's a good point. I never compared it to something being on sale, but you're right. I think
just to be clear, people don't
I
mortgage
think
your
there's a
house to invest
sale.
in our company.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Joel, it's been great catching up. I look forward to the news flow and seeing what's coming next, um, and also as the markets change. It's a great place to be. You've got a safe jurisdiction there, and lots of proven strong mineral content. So I wish you all the best. And I like your approach. Just do what you say you're going to do.
Well, thanks, Shannon. I again appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast to chat with you and catch up a little bit. I firmly believe in our Golden Rose project. I think there's at least one thing there to be found, if not more. So yeah, we'll continue to keep the market apprised. We do put out news on a semi-frequent basis, and people can kind of follow us and make their own call for whether they think we're as well positioned as we think we are.
And you've been screeched and kissed the cod.
And I've been screeched and kissed the cod. I'm as Newfoundland as it gets for someone from Toronto boy.
I had someone tell me that if you don't want to kiss the cod, you can always kiss the puffin's butt.
There's also puffins there. That's true. It's very neat. It's a unique place. It's a great province. Great province to do business in. Great place to visit, as you know as well.
Yeah, wonderful people, which is a huge factor, and people that want to work at home after having to travel to other places in the mining industry. But
Yeah.
Joel, thank you again. TRU Precious Metals, Joel Freudman, CEO, TRU on the TSXV. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Janet. Glad to be here.
See you next time, everyone.